Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Lock Horns on Banger TV, where each week we debate the merits and the weaknesses of our heavy metal family tree, which we created many moons ago for our film Metal, a Headbanger's Journey. This week, doing something a little bit different. We are, in fact, adding a new subgenre to the tree, Symphonic Black Metal, because weeks ago when we did black metal, we nearly shattered the internet with the amount of debate around what is and what is not black metal. So we potentially adding a new branch this week. Before we get into it, quick reminders as usual, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are trying to build the first digital global all metal channel, and check us out at Apple Music, where we are the official metal curator, and each week we put up our very own Lock Horns playlists. Another first this week is we have our first return guest, none other than Jason Deaville. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
You bet. You bet. Of course, from Brave Words, Canada's biggest metal news site. So you liked it enough to come back.
I did. You and your crew convinced me to come back. Very hospitable. So.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're here, because this is kind of semi-perilous waters, because we actually only have two bands up there. Normally we have a bit of a list going, so it's some new territory for us.
We got some work cut out for us.
Exactly. I mean, last time we had actually the longest episode on early black metal. A lot of debate about this genre in general, I guess.
Yeah. There's a lot of feedback. I think people are pretty adamant on who they think should be on there, and I think we did our best.
For sure. Just a bit of a recap for those that didn't join us. We changed it to proto black metal because we felt that some of those early bands, Venom, Merciful Fate, etc., deserved to kind of be recognized more as a forefather of black metal rather than black metal proper. Of course, we kind of kept most of the Norwegian bands in there, Burzum, Dark Throne, etc. But what leads us to now, Cradle of Filth and Dimmu. Jason, share a couple words on, in general, why we might set these bands apart.
Well, I think at the end of our last discussion, they were kind of over here. And like you said, we weren't sure where to put them. So again, we're here today to kind of discuss that. But I think Cradle and Dimmu, unlike some of their peers, were the kind of forefathers of that bombastic symphonic sound. And they took it to places that, bands that were doing it before them hadn't taken it, just right through the stratosphere.
Yeah, changed a lot of things. A reminder to join us. This is all about you, your chance to express your opinions, your passions about this particular style of metal. And I want to welcome people joining us from Germany, Finland, Portugal, Greece, England, Holland, San Diego, Texas, and North York, just up the road. A quick RIP to Prince. We're all a bit shattered by that news. Clearly not a metal artist per se, but a massive influence on music, and influenced a lot of rock and metal musicians. So some sad news today. Off camera, we have our producer Lisa Ladiseur, who has this bell thing that tells us to shut up and to move on. Importantly, when you share your opinions, we want to know why you feel the way you do. We want to hear what your favorite bands are and who should be included and not included, but please tell us why, because it just makes for a better Lock Horns debate. Okay, Symphonic Black Metal. Jason, give us your thoughts on what are the characteristics of this style?
Characteristics. Well, I think it, obviously it borrows from the black metal aesthetic, lyrically, thematically. The biggest difference being is the inclusion of those symphonic elements, that bombastic, kind of epic, through the roof sound.
Yeah.
I like to think of it this way, like Beethoven or his peers back in the day.
Yeah.
Would they have been symphonic black metal if they had the the tools available to them?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
didn't
maybe
get the proper amount of sunlight, and then
exactly
we're on our way.
Yeah. So yeah, things of that nature.
Yeah.
And you know, Dimmu and Cradle obviously did those, brought those elements together in a very cool and you know, easy, I guess, kind of easy listening package.
For sure. I mean, we were talking off camera before that I think today, at the risk of waxing philosophical, it's going to expose some interesting things to discuss. This was a genre that was based on really stripping everything down. It was about being primitive, about being lo-fi, about almost bringing in a kind of punk rock attitude into metal, and yet fast forward and we've got two of the least stripped down, least punk rock bands in metal. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but it's always kind of confused me, I guess.
Yeah, I think, like as we were speaking off camera, these two almost exist in their own kind of subgenre, or genre itself, away from everything else.
Right.
But you know, like their peers, they started as lo-fi. They started as very, you know, primitive and rough. But for some reason, I think maybe it's because of the clarity of the music, that it kind of lends an air of authenticity and kind of a mainstream vibe to the sound that's easier on ears that otherwise wouldn't, you know, wouldn't listen.
For sure. And there's another interesting element here, which is like the two biggest bands from a particular subgenre become their own subgenre, which I don't think we've ever seen in any other sort of subgenre of metal. So it's almost like they broke the mold and then either left or were kicked out. I'm not quite sure. We'll find out today, based on people's opinions, how that all settled. But I guess some people bring up a comparison with gothic metal and symphonic metal. So wanted to get your thoughts on how those are similar or different.
Well, gothic metal, to me, obviously, Cradle could fit that mold today, but you know, early on, maybe not so much. Gothic metal bands like early Within Temptation, we have My Dying Bride, Anathema, bands like that. Kind of, the elements are romantic. You know, they're different from black metal in the way that, you know, there is some sort of romanticism to black metal, but in a very kind of dreary, dark way.
And obviously it doesn't have the extremity
the extremity
of black metal. I mean, that's just missing
first and
pretty much
foremost.
altogether. Right?
Where Dimmu brought the extremity, I think,
for
you know,
sure.
Gothic.
You've been dinged.
I've been dinged.
Lisa, what's up?
Well, I feel I need to interrupt just to say how much people are into your Overkill shirt, Jason.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, it's a good band. Not symphonic black metal. But
Definitely not, but clearly time to do thrash. Don't get me started.
And we got a couple of general comments
Okay,
here.
good. Delicious Dishes, welcome back. Probably the most accessible subgenre of black metal. Fair point. And Superjoint, I got nothing to offer. When I was a kid, I bought the black metal records and said no keyboards used on this album. The keyboards, you know? Europe. Anyway, what do we do with keyboards? That is a whole other lock horns, actually. Let's talk about that in the future. What the hell do we do with keyboards? Okay, so to get started though, maybe we need to step back and talk about who invented symphonic black metal. Share us your thoughts on any predecessors to these two guys.
Well, we can go way, way, way back.
Okay.
Actually, we can go back to 1969 with Deep Purple and their performance with the Philharmonic Orchestra. I think that was the first time that you know, proto metal or rock band, you know, performed with an orchestra. So later on, obviously we have the Metallica and the S&M. And then Dimmu in 2001 performed with a symphony orchestra on one of their albums. So without Deep Purple, would we have ended up here? Would those two genres kind of melded to become what it is in black metal today? I don't know.
And at the risk of going down a rabbit hole, Lisa, don't ring the bell, is that there's always been a synergy between classical and metal in the sense of grandiosity. I mean, even we think of
popcorn.
Kashmir
Yes.
Right? The string
yep.
arrangement in Kashmir, I think that there, and we've talked about this in the early episode of Metal Evolution, where there's always been a particular kinship between classical and metal, because a big part of the mission is to create something massive.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
guitars do that, but so does a good string section, I
Yeah,
guess.
and black metal for sure does that, right?
Cool. Absolutely. So Deep Purple, but Deep Purple, 1969. Let's move forward a little bit. You were thinking there's a couple bands that perhaps we should discuss that are more direct predecessors to these bands.
I think we can go back to 1992 with Italy's Opera 9. They released a demo. It was a very crude demo, but nonetheless, it incorporated symphonic elements.
Yep.
Until they employed an actual classical keyboardist
Right.
For their full-length album, that's when things really became symphonic.
Right, cool. Yes, Lisa?
Well, for once, we have a magnet.
We have a magnet. Look up, all you purists. Didn't know those guys, did you? That's why we brought this guy in, and because he knows what he's talking. Maybe it shouldn't be up so high. What am I doing? Let's getting carried away there. Opera 9, a band I didn't know about. This is kind of, you've been doing some digging.
A little bit, yeah.
In the earth. Cool. Also, I mean, I'm remembering from the last episode we did on black metal, Celtic Frost. There was some discussion that maybe there's some kinship here. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Celtic Frost, if we go back to 85, they were doing some symphonic stuff, but it was so minimal in the albums, 85 to Megatherion, albums like that.
Yeah.
It was so minimal that I'm not sure that it's even, kind of relevant to what we're looking at today. But there was some keyboard tinkerings at the time, for sure.
Well, we've got a question mark and we've got a Celtic Frost magnet, so we'll just leave it there. Yeah, I mean, I see the way Celtic Frost used it as just as an embellishment, creating something quite dark and foreboding, and not really using it as part of the symphonic elements as being part of the fabric of the music, unlike these bands here. Delicious Dishes is back. Celtic Frost. I would say Celtic Frost. Stuff like necromantical screams, fucking yes, is the birthplace of symphonic black metal, in my opinion. True, but perhaps one song does not make a band, or one song does not make a subgenre. This band, however, deserves perhaps a more meatier discussion, is Emperor.
Yeah.
Talk about those guys.
Well, I think Emperor for sure. We're incorporating, symphonic elements, but to the same degree, I think that Celtic Frost was using it a little more. I think what Emperor did was they used symphonic elements kind of as a backdrop to kind of bring elements of the extremity away from that wall of noise.
For sure.
And it would kind of, I don't know if you're into oil painting, but oil painters.
I might be.
Oil painting?
Oil painting. I'm going to make it weird. Yeah. So
oil painting and prints. This is diverse broadcasting. Go ahead.
Oil painters, what they do, some of them before a project, is they'll paint the canvas one color.
Yeah.
And then they'll continue the work.
Right.
What that does is it brings a kind of a luminescence through the painting in the finished work that shines through. I think Emperor was kind of doing the same thing with the symphonic elements. It kind of shined through the music, but it didn't take over the blackness. You know what I mean? So first and foremost, Emperor is about the blackness, about the, that evil kind of vibe, and the keyboards were there to bring that out a little bit.
I think definitely Emperor needs to be part of this conversation, because when I hear those early records, I think you're definitely hearing the seeds of a much more ethereal, atmospheric, a broader palette than much of extreme metal before them. And I think we have some allies. Nick Draney states, I think Emperor belongs here. Their album In the Nightside Eclipse is a great example of symphonic black metal executed with a perfect balance between melody and ethereal, friends, atmosphere, while still retaining the icy bleak production value of classic metal. Well stated. Let's write the PhD. Banger rules. Thanks, Emperor, for sure. They started integrating melodies in such an intense way in a time where true, spelt with a V, fuckers. Black metal and cult with a V. Metal was on the mode. Don't think I get it, but sort of get it. Jorge Rizzo Athier, Emperor is the obvious choice. The whole genre started with them, and I see Guts Dozer. I don't know if we want to... Yes, put Emperor above the title. Yeah. Guts Dozer. Great name, great idea. Troy Ritter, despite what was said on the last episode, I think that Emperor is definitely a symphonic black metal band. If you simply restricted them to being solely black metal, that would be a crime. No criminals here. We put them in there. So, we've got some agreement. That's a good start. We've got Opera 9 up there. Any chat on Opera 9, Lisa? Or have we really stumped the purists on this one?
I would almost say we made that one up, but I know we didn't.
Haha.
Jason wouldn't do that to us.
No.
This guy.
He would have had to go and create the logo and the whole backstory.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Yeah. We got one more here. Sorry, Yarda Bumofo. Rolls off the tongue. Emperor was next to Dimmu, the most influential symphonic black metal band's classic elements are evident. Okay, good agreement there. Well done. We've got somewhere. Good stuff. What's next? I think we're going to have to discuss Cradle. Correct, Lisa? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean...
Do we have to? Joking. Yeah.
How much more is there to be said? Apparently a lot.
Okay, well, let's start with the board. Nick Aravaviano is back. Maybe it's just me, but I really feel this is solely because people don't want to put Cradle and Dimmu in the true purist black metal because they broke the mold even just slightly. I honestly feel that this genre is solely existing to appease black metal purists who don't want Cradle and Dimmu anywhere near their beloved genre. Fighting words. What are your thoughts on that? Interesting perspective.
It can go both ways. You know, I understand purists wanting to protect, you know, what came first. But we have to look back. Like Cradle was there at the beginning, you know, and because they evolved, does that necessarily exempt them from being part of something? I don't think so, you know.
And it gets even trickier when I think that Danny doesn't even self-identify as being a black metal band.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you get into this tricky territory where risk of being long in the tooth, don't ring the bell. Part of metal is self-identification. That's why many people argue that actually Judas Priest is the first heavy metal band because they said we are metal, whereas no one before did. So it gets complicated, the subjective versus the objective, but that's a rabbit hole.
We can't argue that Cradle is not symphonic.
Yeah,
you know,
that's... But the purist thing, hard to please the purists. Roberto Lisboa, Cradle of Filth has to go. Love their first 5 albums, but calling them black metal is like calling Pantera thrash. Ouch. Ryan Grenier, Cradle of Filth is subject to debate. That's why we're here. I don't even know the shorthand. Not black metal. Oh, IMO? Please help me out. I'm so 1.0. Extreme.
In my opinion.
In my opinion, I knew that. Extreme gothic metal, perhaps. I wouldn't even call them symphonic black meal. Me neither. Troy Ritter. I would label my Cradle of Filth as solely being symphonic black, symphonic metal. No black.
That's a good point.
The plot just thickened. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, could they fit in with somebody like Within Temptation? You know? It's a possibility.
Symphonic metal. Good point. Good point. So if symphonic metal is a genre, who else fits with Cradle? Do that little homework. Delicious dishes. There really isn't that much to say about Dimmu and Cradle. They belong here. End of discussion. Next subject. Okay, we're done. Can we talk about Dimmu? A lot of focus on Cradle. The whipping boys of extreme metal, if you will. Dimmu, on the other hand, good band, influential, heavier. Give me your thoughts on Dimmu.
I think, you know, Dimmu, mainstream darlings now, but if you think back 20 years ago, with the rise of black metal and all the events that happened in Norway, these guys were reviled, just like Darkthrone was reviled. You move ahead 20 years later into 2011, and they're playing with the symphony orchestra on Norwegian national TV. What does that say to the, I guess, the mainstream kind of appeal to this music, or the mainstream appeal to Dimmu Borgir?
Right.
But that would never happen in this country. You would never see a band of that nature, you know, performing with the symphonic orchestra on national TV. So,
yeah. I mean, it kind of exposes a lot of things, and one about metal is like, if we didn't protect the boundaries, no one would.
Right.
Right? We are our own gatekeepers in this music because the rest of the world really doesn't give a shit. So if it wasn't for us sort of saying, this is this, this is this, this is this, it would all fall to pieces. And, you know, every album would be the Black Album. Yes, Lisa?
I think we actually have the last word.
Oh, by
Yeah.
Superjoint? Let's read this. It's us fans who didn't like Cradle and Dimmu that got them in their separate genre. And it was good for them too. They sold more records by being different and more melodic. So we all won. Oh, are you Swiss? Canadian? No. Interesting. Very embracing. I guess maybe we all benefit in the end.
Now, are these guys being gatekeepers of their own genre? I don't know.
I don't know.
Like,
I mean,
are they?
Yeah.
they
Is
protect-
Dimmu, I mean, listen. I heard Twisted Sister before I heard Slayer. So maybe it's a gateway drug. Maybe we
Yes.
need those gateway drugs. To an 11-year-old kid, maybe they're going to gravitate towards Cradle, but then go, oh, Dark Throne? What's that? Anyway,
Exactly.
we can all get along on Lock Horns most of the time. Lisa, what's next? Help me out.
Well, there aren't enough bands, and as per our custom here on Longhorns, we give Jason the first chance to add someone.
Okay. Guest's choice. Fresh new addition beyond the Opera 9, which you
Wow.
stumped the entire metal community with. Arcturus. I
Arcturus.
understand.
Hopefully this doesn't stump anyone. I mean, come on. I mean, Arcturus, for sure, what they were doing early on was symphonic, but as we know now, they've kind of grown into this weirdly avant-garde kind of experimental band
Right.
that comprises a bunch of kind of super black metal dudes into one supergroup. But
Yeah.
early on in '94, the Constellation EP was, I think, doing what Emperor was doing the same year. Maybe more so, where Emperor was using just elements of symphonic to pull out that music.
Yep.
Arcturus was creating this entire smorgasbord based on
Very cool.
symphonic elements.
Have we got a magnet? Sorry to interrupt.
We always have a guest choice magnet, but can you read the logo? Is the question.
Evidently not. Where is it? That's
Nope,
not
that's
it.
not it.
That's it. Arcturus. So let me ask you this.
Is that upside down?
Nope, that's Bel Sagoth.
Oh my goodness. That's it. Just
Anorexia
joking.
Nervosa.
Oh, there
it
they
is.
are. Oh, come
All
on.
right. It was hidden. It was the
wasn't
easiest
black
one to
metal
read,
enough.
too. Look
That's
at
why
that.
you
Let me
couldn't
ask you
read it.
this. I mean, if we did that,
Yep,
I mean, does this still hold?
I think so.
We could
Yeah.
remove the black? I think
Maybe.
I think it's a good point. I don't know. I mean, Dimmu, I don't know. Opera 9?
I think Opera 9, Cradle, and Arcturus for sure.
Right.
Dimmu, maybe a little too ingrained with that Norwegian.
Yeah, I might
Kinda
agree.
stuff.
I might agree. A bit too extreme. I think you've got some allies. Thrash Maniac 99 is back. Welcome. Arcturus definitely belong because they were a pioneer to the genre and incorporated avant-garde elements in their sound and are influential to many symphonic black metal bands. Full Metal Guy. Agree with early Arcturus. Thank you. And Phantomonium. Nice one. Arcturus has way more of an avant-garde approach than Symphonics. We're probably tiptoeing on the edge a bit here. Nick at
Yeah.
Night is back. Nick at Night 666, apologies. Arcturus really changed things, but because of Cradle's success, I got into Arcturus. Sorry. I love how we all have to apologize for loving Twisted Sister and Cradle, but it's true. We're not always as cool as we think we are. So yeah, I think you've got some reasonable agreement.
I think
There.
people need to keep in mind it's the early Arcturus that's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
fits this mold.
very cool. Lisa, what's next? Are we going back to the board? Do we have more bands?
Well, the number one band that is being mentioned, I don't want to pronounce because last time I called Death Haven, and I got a lot of bad mail.
And it would be almost
So
like trying to
maybe-
pronounce Bal Sagoth upside down.
So maybe Jason can help us out, but we got to go here next.
All right.
Say it.
There's a couple of ways to say it. I did some research.
Oh, good for you.
I'm going to go with Karak Ongren.
Okay.
Karak Ongren.
Okay.
All
Let's
right.
see how that goes down. Sounds vaguely Celtic or something. Stefan Groneveld. I think Karak Angren should be added. A symphonic black metal / horror band from the Netherlands who is really reinventing the way symphonic black metal sounds.
I disagree with that.
With only 4 albums, they sell out a lot of shows all around the world, and they are a great influence on black metal already. A perfect addition, in my opinion. You disagree? Agree?
Well, I disagree that they're doing something different. I think what Karak Angren is doing is they're kind of taking the torch from where Dimmu left off. I mean, it's been 6 years since the last Dimmu album.
Right.
Within that time, Karak Angren has released 3 albums.
Right.
They're a young band. They're kind of one of the first bands in this new realm of symphonic black. They're doing cool things, but it's nothing that Dimmu wasn't doing 15 years before.
People are getting animated. People are stomping down on their all caps key here. Brandon Geiger, Karak fucking Angren, dude. Artur Castanha is back. Welcome. Karak Angren for their approach on black metal for adding violins and other string instruments. Robert Laidlaw, get Karak Angren on there. Their amazing duality of dark and sometimes bombastic orchestral with the raw heaviness of the guitar, in my opinion, and they need to be on there. And Wilco Houtman, I want Karak Angren on the list because they have influenced a lot of bands in Holland and the rest of the world. You gonna stump me with another logo, or do I have to write one, Lisa?
You gotta write that one.
Oh yeah, okay.
But can you spell it?
Ready for this.
No looking at the... All right, you got,
I think I got it. Yeah? So
there
far,
you go.
so good. Karak Angren.
I like it.
Should be upside down, but let's do it right side up for once. Who else is out there? Craig Heinem. Karak Angren. Come on. What about Geddy Lee's solo project? Way more symphonic. Banger staff, we're watching you. Delicious Dishes, Karak Angren for the best band right now in the genre, widely successful, awesome live, and the best corpse paint I've seen so far. I thought, is it April Fools? Maybe this band doesn't even exist. Evil Beard, because of their use of keyboards to create atmosphere along with screeching black metal vocal style. And Hari Desikachari, Karak Angren are definitely carrying the torch for the sound and pushing it further. Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I've seen interviews with them where they don't even self-identify with symphonic. They call themselves horror metal.
Okay.
So, I mean, lyrically, yeah, it's horror. It's kind of spooky stuff.
Yep.
But what they're doing is...
Black metal consensus on the internet?
There's a first for everything.
What's
on
going
Lock
on?
Horns. Old Man's Child, Lisa, am I seeing?
That's what I'm seeing.
Here we go. Nicholas Glover. Where the hell is Old Man's Child? Lost it. Galder have been at it as long as Dimmu. Released 7 records, and he kicks ass. Good band. I haven't listened to them in a while. Stefano Bartolone, Old Man's Child, is a great symphonic black metal band. Hecate and Throne is pretty good too. Thoughts?
Yeah, both those bands, for sure.
Yep.
I mean, what Galder did was, even at the same time that Dimmu were doing stuff, was bring, I guess, that symphonic element to Nordic black metal, but he joined Dimmu Borgir and released a few albums, and there hasn't been an album, I think, in a long time.
Right, so they sort of exist because Dimmu exists, when I mean that on our actual chart. So we'll write them in. We're going to be pretty liberal today. We're building a subgenre, for crying out loud. Go ahead, sorry, Jason.
And the early Old Man's Child, it was a little more, I don't know, it was a little more folky.
Yes.
With symphonic elements added to
Yep,
it.
yep.
Things became a little more, I guess, bombastic a few albums later.
Yep.
But yeah, I think they deserve a place on the board.
They fit.
Yeah.
Part of the family. What else we got?
Well, we got someone who's funny.
Oh, we like those people. Nick at Night 666. Old Man's Chili with a Dimmu burger. Awesome. Keep them coming. Really, keep them coming. Summoning. We need summoning, says Herbert Igor. We need summoning on the chart.
I thought about summoning.
Yes.
But they kind of cross the atmospheric, symphonic. There's really, I don't know, there's a dividing line between the two, but sometimes they meld together, and summoning, I think, are a little more atmospheric than they are symphonic.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Maybe
the internet does not agree with
okay,
you.
especially
They don't like you anymore.
No, they
and I would not want to disagree with someone named Gamork. Summoning pushed their sound towards epic soundscapes that it must have affected to future bands.
With less keyboards.
Fuck, I love. Can I be good more? Morris Moskwa, Summoning needs to be there. And Lee Stabline, definitely add Summoning. Are we getting into some ambient, avant-garde? We're dipping our toes somewhere else here.
We've got a few who want it on there. Can we argue? Can we argue?
Well, we like to argue. Let's keep arguing. Maybe we'll put them with a question mark.
If you were to do...
Because our resident expert does not entirely agree, and that matters. Summoning.
I think if you were to do an atmospheric black metal episode, they would be at the top.
Fair enough.
But if we were to stick to what this is about, and that the keyboards are the biggest part of the sound,
right?
I don't think Summoning fits that, because I don't think keyboards define their sound.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, back to the list of ingredients. I mean, I think it's a number of elements, you know, that makes it. There has to be a certain aesthetic. There has to be a certain sound. Lyrics gravitating again towards a slightly more diabolical, gothic, romantic, vampiric. Great word. Yes, Lisa.
Jason has one friend.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
There's a first for everything. Chips,
There.
96,
See?
Triple I. Yeah, Summoning is atmospheric black more than symphonic black. Is that your dad?
That's my dad, Chips. Oh, man.
AKA Chips. Great show. Where are we going next? We got any other bands to add, Lisa?
Oh, so many bands. Well, I think we gave away a hint here with our magnet fumbling.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Blame me for that. I'm going to put it right side up. Arcturus, joking. Paul Leach, Balsagoth, because they were one of the first symphonic black death metal bands forming in the late 80s and still influential today. You know, I'm not going to put them in there yet. That's too easy. There's one person. What are your thoughts?
Balsagoth.
Yeah.
One word. Weird. Okay, so they have symphonic elements.
Yeah.
But if you were to take, let's look at it this way. If you were to take, I guess, Dimmu, if you were to take Dark Throne, and maybe throw in some Blind Guardian into a blender, mix it all up, and then, you know, top it with some circus music, you have Balsagoth.
Yeah.
They're cool.
Delicious.
I think David
But-
Belt would really like that.
They're wacky. They're wacky. They're like like I said, they're like the Blind Guardian of symphonic black metal. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
It's over my head.
Right.
But a lot of people are. So,
Well,
you know.
Blind Guardian, power metal, symphonic. There is some kinship here. If you think Balsagoth belongs because they don't yet, we need to hear yes and why.
Yeah.
Dragon Lord. Wow. Yeah, Dragon Lord. Awesome. Evil Beard is back. Dragon Lord because of their use of keyboards for atmosphere and the screeching black metal vocals.
2 albums. You know, it's the guitarist from Testament who did Dragon Lord.
Yeah.
And apparently they're doing something soon.
Cool. But 2 albums do not make a band.
Yeah,
perhaps?
and I found it was kind of, back in the day, a little second-rate Dimmu to me. But maybe they needed to define that sound more, but he was busy with Testament.
Well, yeah,
so.
not the number one focus for Eric. Nick at Night 666, Balsagoth are like the Mr. Bungle of black metal.
Yeah.
There you go, in a sentence. Nick at Night is on a roll. More to him than chilies and burgers. Here's a band I haven't talked about in a while. Thonic. Tell us about Thonic.
Very cool band, very consistent. I think the first album was about 99. So they're from Taiwan, and what they do is they incorporate kind of symphonic black metal with oriental instrumentations. And more recently, they've kind of gotten away from, I think, the symphonic and moved into a Swedish death metal territory.
Right.
A little Dragon Forcey,
Oh, yeah.
maybe a little J-poppy mixed in
Right.
there. But early on, the first few albums were definitely straight up symphonic black metal.
Hopefully not lured by the seduction of baby metal. I do remember Thonic from when we made Global Metal. We didn't include them in the film, but there's a track of theirs on the soundtrack that we created for the film. Yeah, really cool music and a really good example of how metal can incorporate non-conventional instruments, stemming from different musical traditions. Oliver Grunseis, Thonic could be added. Domain Z 77, it's Zed. Thonic is folk. Okay.
If you were to think about those Oriental kind of
maybe
vibes
I don't
they
know,
throw in
maybe
there.
they're there. What I'm sensing from the board, Lisa, if I may, is like a smattering. We got a lot of different. I'm in the margins. I'm seeing Moonspell, Winter Sun.
There's a lot of confusion about what symphonic black metal really is.
Right, which is why we never put it on the chart in the first place. Anyway, Gmork. Still no limbic art on the list. So much symphonic keyboards that had more attention than guitars, but still they had black metal sound. Full Metal Guy agrees. Limbic Art is one of the earliest symphonic black metal bands around the same time as Dimmu. This logo I can read.
I think what Limbic Art
Yep.
was doing, and what I guess Emperor fans wanted them to do, was carry on with what Emperor did in the Nightside Eclipse in '94,
Yeah.
but added more symphonic elements. So they're very extreme like Emperor,
Right.
but as someone mentioned, the keys are prominent.
Yeah.
So you have that extremity, and you have the keys, and it's just one incredible wall of sound. I believe they have several albums. It's a one-man band now, or one-man band.
Yep.
Last album was 2010, so I'm not sure they're still.
Let's step back for a moment. We're not done with the board. Are you happy with this? Is it fair to put, first of all, Limbic Art in or out, in your opinion?
I think in.
Okay, cool.
Early enough that they were doing cool things.
Yeah.
And like I said, grabbed what Emperor were doing and kind of rolled with it. So yeah, I like
Reasonably
how it's looking so
fair.
far.
This is, I mean, Celtic Frost isn't really a question mark,
Yeah.
in my opinion, but for the purposes of today, we're putting them off to the side. Summoning Balsagoth, Thonic, you're all happy that
I
they
think
belong over here?
Thonic should be over
You
here.
do?
I
Okay,
do.
all right.
Yeah.
Let's see what people have to say about that. And going back up here, Opera 9, of course, would not precede Emperor, would they? We testing our
if we
Nightside
go by
Eclipse
their-
was 90,
94.
4.
And their demo was 92, but their album was 95.
Okay.
So if we were
All right.
look
Well,
purely on the demo, then
I mean, in terms of impact and
impact is a huge
legacy,
difference there.
it's apples and oranges, but we'll put them up there. Nonetheless, Lisa, looks like we're getting some traction. Yes?
One, Jason's shirt continues to be popular.
Excellent job on the shirt. Overkill.
Two, some bands we haven't mentioned yet.
G. Bodeth, Anorexia Nervosa, is one of the more well-known symphonic black metal bands, so they also deserve a spot. Pierre-Alexandre Demers, Anorexia Nervosa, definitely one, if not the earliest influence on symphonic black metal.
Their-
Thoughts?
Yeah, early stuff was
Uh-huh.
a little industrial tinged, a little experimental, but by the early 2000s they were doing stuff that blew Dimmu away, in my opinion. So yeah, I think they do belong out of France. They kind of pioneered a whole movement of this stuff in France.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah. All right.
and-
See what we got. We got Bradley Zorgdrager back. Before I knew about symphonic black metal, I listened to Anorexia Nervosa. They were an early discovery around when I heard Dimmu Borgir, but potentially more true, so to speak. Yeah, so some agreement there on
And they went
this band.
a little more romantic,
Uh-huh.
even though they were extreme,
Uh-huh.
like Dimmu. Their kind of lyrical and imagery was a little more associated with Cradle, I think.
Admittedly, I have a hard time with romantic and metal in the same sentence. Maybe I'm just a crusty old bastard. I don't know.
No, I mean, a lot of people are having trouble with this genre more than any Lockhorns that we've had so far.
Yeah, it wasn't about boy meets girl. That's why we loved it, because all the other music was. Anyway, don't get me started. Spiked acid? I want to say spiked acid because it sounds good. Spiked acid. It's amazing how many people are confusing straight up symphonic influences with bands that are actually symphonic black. Good point. It raises that good point raised earlier that maybe we're talking about symphonic metal here, ultimately. Lucas McKnight. People keep wanting to add bands just because of keyboards. Shouldn't symphonic bands have more characteristics to a symphony than just keyboards? Good point.
Yeah, I think the entire genre of symphonic black metal is, like I said earlier, it should be defined on how symphonic it is.
Yeah.
The more symphonic, the
Yeah.
better, in my opinion.
Yeah, it can't just be keyboards added.
Right. Yes.
So
Which is what I think Emperor was doing. You know, they
Yeah,
didn't,
that's
they didn't
right.
grow through the roof with the symphonic elements.
Right. Yes.
I think we need to make a decision about our bands in the question mark.
Okay. First up, we've got Summoning. Phantomonium. Summoning is great, but definitely atmospheric black metal. Atmospheric, creating another branch. Who knows? 7-7, the Reaper 7-7. Summoning has a more synth element to them, which gives them an epic atmospheric sound, but they are not symphonic. And Colin Lakativa, Balsagoth, are insane and deserve a spot on the board. Okay, insanity wasn't a criteria, but I fucking get your point. Yeah? I don't know. No.
I think if we come back to, if you're doing an atmospheric metal one, maybe it can be housed there and then come back later. I'm not sure.
I'm happy with this,
Yeah? Okay.
but it's not about me. You guys still happy with that? Lisa, are people happy or do people want more?
Nobody's happy.
Nobody's happy. It's fucking black metal. Stupid.
We're seeing a bunch of things. We're seeing Psy. We're seeing
Psy,
Abigail Williams. Too soon? I don't know.
Sear Bliss, All Man's Child. We've talked about most of these bands. I'm starting to feel pretty good about this.
We
started
have
with
one
two.
off to the side, I can see.
Oh.
Staring at us.
We did prepare, it's true, thank you, Jason, a magnet in advance. Tell me about this band.
Visania.
Yeah.
Okay, one of my personal favorites. It's a band that has members of both Behemoth and Vader. They had an album in 2005 called God Deluxe, which took what Dimmu was doing but added some industrial elements to it. But it was very well produced, very epic, very kind of foreboding. And today, a little different. What they're doing now is a little more romantic, a little more insane, with some Belsagoth kind of influences.
Cool.
But Visania in the mid-2000s, I think we're doing something a little different than Dimmu in synth. So
I gotta listen to this band. How many records did they put out?
I think they have 3 full lengths.
Cool.
Now. Yeah,
Very cool.
3 or 4.
Okay. We'll put them here for now. Want to hear if you get any support out there. Evil Beard, Abigail Williams, Callan Phillips. Abigail Williams is way more symphonic than Summoning. What do you think?
Abigail Williams' early stuff was like synth meets metalcore. It was
Right.
really bizarre.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Not too different than what Cradle was doing. Imagery a little different, but their newest album, their last 2 albums, I think are far more atmospheric black metal. I don't think they belong. They don't even touch symphonic at this point, in my opinion.
Right.
Way too atmospheric.
Okay. I mean, they have some supporters out here. Philip Alvarez, Abigail Williams. They are symphonic with some atmospheric elements. Fair enough. 7-7, the Reaper 7-7's back. Abigail Williams are a very new band that doesn't really deserve a spot on the board at this point. I mean, it is kind of the perilous territory you get into when you start creating new subgenres. Inevitably, you're going to be creating, putting on bands that are perhaps a little younger, and don't have a firm footprint. I mean, yes, Old Man's Child made some great records, but you don't see them in lists of influences on bands.
It's
That's
funny
another
about.
criteria to consider. Yes.
So here's something that's come up quite a bit. What if we called this symphonic extreme metal?
Okay, MC Brook says, I'd like to see symphonic black discarded and maybe a symphonic extreme metal subgenre instead, which could include bands such as Flesh God Apocalypse and Septic Flesh as well. Yeah, I mean, whichever way you cut the loaf, it's gonna affect the bands. I mean, if it was extreme, I guess all of these bands would be included.
I
Yes.
guess, yeah, for sure. But I don't know. I think how we have dividing lines between death metal and black metal.
Yeah.
I also see those within the subgenres as well.
Yeah.
Bands like Flesh God
Yeah.
and Septic Flesh,
Yeah.
to me, are doing completely different things than what the blackened bands are doing within symphonic.
I tend to agree. Okay, Brad Ennis not quitting. Psy needs to go up. Yeah, Psy, cool band. Worked with them in Japan for Global Metal. Again, they've got that keyboard element, but I don't know if I'd consider them symphonic. What about you?
No, I agree with you. I think they're more experimental than anything.
For sure, and they've got a lot of kind of thrashiness to them, and in many ways they're quite stripped down.
Yep.
They're not one of these kind of grand bands.
And for the last episode, I think they would have fit that board.
Right.
The early stuff especially.
Yeah.
I mean, they were discovered by Euronymous, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
existed at that time in the early 90s.
And we're also, it's tricky when you start getting into avant-garde and experimental, because where are the boundaries? I mean, that's
Yeah.
just a concept. It's like anything that's experimental just gets thrown in there.
Yep.
But it could be experimental in any number of ways. Nick Glover, Symphonic Extreme Metal for sure. Okay, good idea. Philip Alvarez agreed with Extreme Symphonic, and John Van Dyke, no, this should be Symphonic Black because it is so influenced by black metal. I think we're going to stand our ground today
I think so.
on Symphonic Black Metal at the risk of being orthodox. I think we at least created something new that wasn't on the original chart. So we got somewhere. Lisa, what goes?
Well, I think next week we've decided to do a new genre also called purple metal, our tribute to Prince.
Okay, good.
But other than that, I think we're done.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, sir. Great
you very
job
much.
once again.
Appreciate it.
Careful, we might have you back again. Thank you all for tuning in. A reminder, this is going to be archived almost immediately on the Banger TV YouTube channel. I want to thank the whole team, Daniel, Lisa, Lana, Andrew, and of course, Jason for joining us again. Reminders, subscribe to our channel, Banger TV. Help us make it huge. And go to Apple Music and check out our playlists. We are the official metal curators over there. Lock Horns is back next week. Don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to do something. And we want you to join us. Thanks again. See you next time.